Did America's strategic Bitcoin reserve just get 600,000 Bitcoin bigger? A lot of people have been talking about what's been happening in Venezuela over the weekend, but today we're going to give you an insider's perspective, not from me, but as some of you might not know, Nico is Venezuelan and he used to mine Bitcoin in the country. So we're going to confirm some of the alleged rumors circulating on Twitter. Some of them are true. There is some weight to those rumors. But before we get into all that, let's bring everyone up to speed on the events that happened on Saturday morning. So if you're completely unaware of what's happening, if you've been, under a rock all weekend, very, very intense social media barrage of what happened. So literally, Friday night, we all go to bed. Nothing's happening. Nothing changed in the world. Saturday morning, we're in a totally different world. So first off, let me just pull up a headline so you guys can kind of, catch up on what's going on. Here's from Fox News. Trump's Maduro takedown resets the global chessboard and reasserts American power. So they did an operation called Absolute Resolve, which literally lasted 2 hours. And if you were on Twitter over the weekend, you saw like insane military edits. It was kind of some really good social media stuff. I'm not going to lie. So, they go in 2 hours. They basically, kidnap Maduro and his power, his regime, and literally changed the whole economic order, the whole world order right now. Geopolitics. Sorry, Nico's messing with my soundboard. And another interesting little tidbit before I give it to Nico so he can kind of give you the background. Again, he is Venezuelan. He's got a little more insight to what's been happening in the country and maybe what the implications are. But one of the interesting tidbits that did happen that I think a lot of people miss was Maduro was meeting with Chinese officials literally that day, and then Trump goes in and they just take him out. And, then they take him to the U.S., they parade him in New York, just insane stuff. The military edits, the fortunate son, honestly, they were kind of badass. I'm not going to lie. But anyways, Nico, you take it from here.
Before I add to that, could you talk a little bit about the Bitcoin?
I'm going to get into all of that. So just start with the context of, what this means to you as a Venezuelan. And then, I will go into essentially what the official report was. The official kind of take was because of Maduro was a narco trafficking leader. They went because of drug related reasons. Very quickly, we found, obviously, I think the real reasons afterwards. But anyways, Nico, you take it from here, and then I'll do kind of the whole why we're even talking about it on a Bitcoin show.
Yeah. So first of all, I've been extremely reserved about this topic this entire weekend. And it was very hard for me to be reserved on the topic because it was literally the only thing anyone was talking about. And the memes that the Trump administration were dropping were like out of this world, hilarious and on point. But look, I'm a first generation American. I became an American when I was 10 years old. Before that, I still am a Venezuelan. My entire family's Venezuelan from my mom's side, from my dad's side. I still have family in Venezuela. I grew up in the States, but I speak Spanish fluently, and culturally, it's who I am. My wife is also 100% Venezuelan. So my wife is Venezuelan. I'm Venezuelan. My family is Venezuelan. And this weekend, it was very difficult for me not to speak up. I did, shoot out some cryptic tweets, with the Venezuelan flag and stuff like that. But here's my take. This is the first time I'm actually being public about it. First of all, if you're not from Venezuela and you're opinionating on this, I just don't care to hear about what your opinion is on this. The vast majority of Venezuelans feel exactly the way I do. The only ones that feel differently are probably people that are not from the country. I'll put it to you bluntly. The Trump administration potentially started to end 25 years of communism. That is what happened. I'm over the moon. My family is over the moon. All of Miami is over the moon. Saturday, people were dancing on the streets. This is fantastic. This is great news. All the criticisms that I hear are from people in the States that are not from the country. You have no idea what the people of Venezuela went through. You have no idea that people were literally starving for food. You have no idea about the fact that this guy literally was torturing his political opponents. This guy stole an election bluntly, openly. This guy was trafficking drugs into the United States. He was stealing, I would say, billions of dollars from the people of Venezuela. Of course, I'm happy with what the Trump administration did. Going in there, no boots on the ground, just going in there, literally kidnapping the guy in the dead of night. The operation took an hour and a half. Oh, and by the way, guess what? All the people that are saying, oh, the United States shouldn't get involved. You know who all of Maduro's bodyguards, you know where they were from? They weren't from Venezuela. He didn't trust them. They were all Cuban. They were all his bodyguards were Cuban. You want to know why? Because Cuba depends on Venezuelan oil. It's a very, very poor country. And the Venezuelan regime is what was keeping it afloat. So yes, I'm over the moon. This is fantastic news. Now, is it actually going to lead to, a transition to, an election and democracy and all of that stuff? That's yet to be determined. The two other guys, the two other power players, they're still there. They're still alive. They're still in Venezuela. All of them have Marxist backgrounds, have collectivist backgrounds. If you look at some of the rhetoric that they've been saying over the weekend, it doesn't seem like they're going along with it, but simultaneously the confidence in Trump's voice. And I also got to give credit where credit is due. You know who the architect is behind a lot of this? It's our boy Marco Rubio. He has a Cuban, he's again, Cuban American, Cuban background. Obviously, the South Floridian vote was very important for Trump. It was one of the only metropolitan areas that voted right. That usually never happens in big cities. And it's because of the giant Venezuelan and Cuban immigration populations in this city that, again, are running away from these tyrannical governments, right? So I love the way he did it. It's in stark contrast with how Afghanistan played out and how that kind of regime change stuff panned out. I wasn't a big fan of that. The US government spent trillions of dollars. They sent hundreds of thousands of troops there. It ended up being this like 15-year ordeal. Then when the US pulled out, it left a power vacuum. Like, it wasn't good. Like, this was surgical. This was strategic. It literally took an hour and a half. No American lives were lost. No American equipment was lost. It was like bam, bing, bam, boom. And the guy is literally getting perped walk in New York. And I don't know if you saw the video, the latest video of Maduro.
I was gonna play it a little bit later. In
literally,
in the numbers.
like he's like in chains. First of all, he's smiling, so like he must be giving up all the secrets, right? He's smiling like this, and he's just saying like, good night, how are you, happy New Year. Like, it's again, this is a guy who, in the face of the Trump administration, was laughing in their face. Like, Trump would say stuff like, look, like, basically make a deal. They gave him every opportunity to make a deal, to essentially exile himself, live well, live on a nice beach, go away. He didn't take them. And then he would go on TV. I don't know if you guys have seen the clips, and literally call Donald Trump out and say, listen, if you want to mess with me, you come here, you get me, you kidnap me. And that's that. That's what he was saying. He kept saying that over and over and over again. He would call out Elon Musk. He would say, Elon Musk, let's fight. Let's do a fist fight. You and me alone. I'm not afraid. And what do you know? They just kidnap the guy. Literally, they take the guy. They get him out of the country. They literally take him to New York. And now he's probably going to spend the rest of his life in prison. If he doesn't spend the rest of his life in prison, he's probably going to give up a lot of secrets, or a lot of things that have been going on in the background that a lot of people, don't necessarily want to know, right? So, either way, I think it's a huge victory for the people of Venezuela. if you're not Venezuelan, if you're just looking at this as an outlooker and you're just saying, oh, how could you opine on this? I just don't care about your opinion. Like, I don't think you understand. Venezuela used to be literally one of the wealthiest countries in the Western hemisphere until the election of Chavez. And then it went down the slow, very historical known pattern of what socialism does to a country. It's great until you run out of people's money. When you run out of people's money, then everyone is equally poor, but not really, because the elites, you know, they live on another level. The majority of the population are poor. So I'm extremely happy if, you know, if that actually changes. And again, for anyone who doesn't know, the reason that all of this happened, and I'm super glad that Trump's being blunt about it, unlike before, is Venezuela has one of the largest oil reserves in the world. And it has a very particular type of oil. It has heavy crude, which needs a lot of refinement. And you know, the other country that has heavy crude that the United States was importing from, it was Canada, right? So basically, we depended a lot on Canada to get this particular type of oil. This opens up another country where the U.S. could get this type of oil. And again, obviously, that puts the United States in a very, very strong negotiating position. What I liked about Trump's speech, I think it was on Friday or something like that, is that he was just blunt about it. When they asked him, like, who controls the country? He just looks around. He's like, we do.
Wait, I think I wasn't gonna play it, but I think I have
He's
that.
like,
I have
like,
that over
it's
here.
like we do. And then, you know, and then when they kept asking him, like, how are you gonna do this? How are you gonna take care of this? Like, it was like the most gangster shit It was like the most gangster shit I've ever seen. And and maybe a lot of people are saying, like, oh, but Nico, they're just coming for the oil. It's like, yeah, they totally are coming for the oil. But you know what they're going to do when they come for the oil? They're going to bring jobs. They're going to bring opportunity. They're going to bring in foreign investment. They're going to bring in stability. You guys have to understand, it's fantastic. Venezuela is a failed state. You guys have to understand this. It's not like, this is a country that should be like Saudi Arabia. It has so much natural resources, has so much wealth. And again, it was a very wealthy country until it went down the path of collectivism. So I'm super happy that, you know, it seems like we're heading in this right direction where Chavismo is essentially dying. That sounds fantastic. Sounds great. And as a Venezuelan, I feel that way. And I could say this for most of Miami, we all feel this way. And the only people that probably don't feel this way are people that are actively benefiting from the regime. Because if you're not actively benefiting from the regime, you probably are in the same position that I am. You guys have to understand, Venezuela has a population of 26 million people. 8 million people, 8 million people since the election of Chavez, which is like 25 years ago, have since fled the country. That is like 1/3 of the population have literally left. What does that tell you? They left because of lack of economic opportunity, the political hostility, the security situation on the ground. Again, so, you know, this whole argument where it's like, oh my God, here, like we're in another war. We're not in another war. There's no boots on the ground in Venezuela. Yes, okay, the United States instigated regime change. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. That's fine. That's great. Like what was there before was horrific. You guys have to understand this. And anyone who's like criticizing this is not Venezuelan, right? Look, Venezuela is a Hispanic country, right? So most people probably has Hispanic names. I guarantee you that a bunch of Venezuelan children are now going to be named Donald, right? And you can't even pronounce Donald in Spanish. But
Donaldo.
But they're going to be named Donald, right? Like, that's how big of a deal what happened on Saturday was for the Venezuelan people. And again, I haven't said any of this on Twitter. I've contained myself. I've kept the opinions to myself. I've been very quiet. But now I'm telling you guys publicly on air, I thought what happened on Saturday was historic and was fantastic for the country. Let's see if the regime actually changes. From my understanding, a little bit of the inside baseball, they are actively negotiating, and it seems like the current regime in place is scared, like they're scared shitless. Like they don't know how to, but could you imagine, like, one day the guy was in power, he was dancing, he was like, I'm secure, I built a bunker, I built a steel door, and then literally within 3 hours he was on a US aircraft carrier, right? Like, if that doesn't instill fear in you, I don't know what does, right? And he had it coming to him. Look, he fucked around and he found out, right? He fucked around and he found out. And I'm all for it. I'm very happy about it. I hope this leads again to an actual election. Let's see if it does. From my understanding, that's what this is going to be working up to. But it's not as simple as giving power to the opposition, because the opposition doesn't have the power infrastructure behind them. That's why Trump wasn't willing to do that. So what he's doing is he's actively negotiating with the current regime, with the current government, and there is supposedly a transition plan. Now, the reason I say supposedly is I'll believe it when I see it. When you've lived something, when you've seen something play out for 25 years, and you know that the people behind them is the Cuban government, who has managed to keep control over Cuba for 70 years, even though, again, Cuba isn't doing so hot economically, they obviously know what they're doing, right? So I want to see how it plays out. That clearly he has the support of the Venezuelan diaspora that's all over the world. He has my support. I think what happened on Saturday was incredible. And that's my take, Opti. This is the first time I'm saying it publicly. I'm really happy with what happened, because I kept getting phone calls. Like I got like 20 phone calls this week. It's like, are you okay with American forward intervention? I kept saying, I'm like, bro, fuck yeah. It's 25 years of communism just ended. Like, that's incredible. That's great. That sounds like a great idea. That's incredible. Everyone was over the moon. My entire family was over the moon. My extended family was over the moon. We're all very happy that this happened. The only people that are not happy that this happened are people that are not from Venezuela. There was like a comment from the communist mayor of New York, and he was like, yeah, I've called, like, I've called Donald Trump to voice my opposition, and then simultaneously Times Square is just lit up with like thousands of Venezuelans with flags celebrating. Like, if you guys have seen the videos from over the weekend, like, it's like, dude, like, read the room, bro, read the crowd. Like, the only people that are just not okay with what happened are people not from the country. Right. So I just don't care about your opinion. I just don't care about it. I don't care about it. And I honestly, I found it a little bit elitist, and it's like as if you're talking down to me. It's like, I know what's best for you. It's like, no, you fucking don't. Right. So that's my take. That's my hot take on everything. I know it's not related to Bitcoin, but
well, let me get into the Bitcoin stuff here, because Nico does have to run, so I want to get into the Bitcoin stuff. But on the one hand, I have my thoughts on, the fiat war machine that we always talk about. On the other hand, call me a statist all you want, but the American exceptionalist memes had me going like, America, fuck yeah, over the weekend. Hey, I'm not a perfect person. Okay, I am human after all. Anyways, Nico kind of really touched on the initial report of what the reasons were. Again, the official kind of narrative was that we went down there to take out Maduro because of drug trafficking or drug-related reasons. And as Nico pointed out, it became very clear that, they were pretty honest about what they were going down there. This isn't George Bush era stuff where he's like, oh, the oil, like I saw the Dave Chappelle meme, oil, what are you talking about oil? No, he was like, yo, yeah, like we're there for the oil. Venezuela has, I believe it's like $17 trillion of crude oil down there. They also have $22 billion of gold reserves. And the interesting part about the oil, obviously we talk about oil here constantly, the petro-dollar system. Well, an interesting caveat to really understand is, what has Donald Trump been wanting to do in regards to treasuries? Lower interest rates, increase the money printer, but that comes with its own problems. Well, if they have their new oil reserves, then they can lower interest all they want, and they're going to run the economy hot. That's like, what they're most likely going to do. Now, another interesting aspect of this before I get to the Bitcoin stuff was that within 24 hours of this, the U.S. government basically secured a new silver smelter deal with Latin American metals, which is obviously very interesting when you consider what's been going on with the silver markets. We've been talking about the silver markets on this show, essentially showing, hey, the hard monies, the precious metals are showing us what's happening in the economy and what investors are thinking. Well, what's interesting, in 2011, when something similar happened with silver and it started to run, Obama did something similar where he announced an operation, and then the following day, silver price cooled off and it didn't recover till literally, last week. Well, an interesting kind of caveat happened now. The U.S., or rather Trump, did something similar, and yet silver is still running. So this time is completely different. Now, those are obviously more of the geopolitical, economic kind of factors that you probably don't care watching from a Bitcoiner show. Here is where it gets really interesting. And I wish Nico hung out for a little while longer. So I'm going to give you kind of the secondhand view of what Nico has told me about what has happened in Venezuela. But here is, again, this is unverified rumors, unverified reports, but it does make a lot of sense when you understand kind of how long Bitcoin has been on the gray markets in Venezuela. So a lot of people were reporting this, but allegedly from this, I've never heard of them before, but it's called, I believe it's Humanit, Humint, I believe. Here it is, or Humint, Humint. Allegedly, Venezuela had one of the biggest national strategic Bitcoin reserves, roughly around 600,000 Bitcoin. Now, the reason that this is kind of the numbers that we're thinking about, well, it goes into what they did with their gold reserves. So here we go. Intelligence reports indicate that the Venezuelan regime accumulated a shadow reserve of Bitcoin and Tether estimated at more than $60 billion. The regime likely converted 2 billion of their gold proceeds, 10 years ago, basically, let me see if does this one tell me the date. It doesn't tell me the date, but in 2018, here we go. In 2018, they, liquidated 2 billion of gold. Then they used kind of, I believe it was Turkey, UAE, and some other countries to sell their gold. And then they bought Bitcoin through OTC desks. So again, the regime likely converted 2 billion of gold proceeds into Bitcoin at an average price of $5,000, which would have been roughly around 400,000 Bitcoin. At June 2026 prices of roughly 90K, that's around $36 billion. Now, as the petro experiment failed, the regime pivoted to using Tether as a proxy for the petrodollar during crude oil sales. However, Venezuela began to wash that into Bitcoin, recognizing that USDT retains the ability to freeze addresses. So again, they did gold swaps in 2018 and 2020 of crude oil valued now at roughly $45 to $50 billion. They did petro Tether sales in 2023 to 2025, which that's roughly around 10 billion to 15 billion. They did a lot of mining seizures, which Nico can confirm. He said on the show a lot, giving them roughly about 60 billion or 600 plus thousand coins. Now, the real kind of uncertainty of all this is obviously, who's in control of the keys. Now, it is interesting what Nico said, seeing, Maduro smiling. He's giving up all the secrets. I'm guessing if this is confirmed, and this is a big if this is all confirmed, I'm guessing the U.S. is going to do asset forfeiture, as they've been talking budget neutral ways to acquire Bitcoin. Well, they're going to Venezuela. They just took their oil. They just took their probably gold reserves. They have, new silver reserves in literally the moment when it looked like Deutsche Bank was getting blown up. It looks like some big banks are getting called offsides on silver shorts. We've been covering all this the last couple of days, and I'm guessing they're probably taking control of the Bitcoin. Now, again, this is all unverified reports. You could call them rumors, but it's very likely that this is happening. Now, to kind of talk on some of the rumors, Nico's told me, Again, he was mining in Venezuela before he started Simply Bitcoin. And he's told me multiple stories. It's been on the show before constantly. He's like, yeah, at a certain point, you just couldn't get rigs into Venezuela because government officials would basically realize that, hey, I can just plug this computer in and make more money than I do a month, actually doing a job. And now, of course, it all goes back to, who's actually controlling the keys. Was this coming from a governmental decree, or were these just rogue individuals acting on their own accords? Now, that's one of the rumors that is most definitely verified. Now, the other kind of big speculation was Venezuela using Bitcoin to skirt sanctions? I think, from first principles thinking, I think it's very clear that they were actually doing this. Now, if they did do that move where they liquidated gold, put 5 billion in Bitcoin at roughly, 5 to 8K, then they hodled that till today. You could argue they had one of the biggest shadow reserves in the world. At the time, it was double what the U.S. had been doing by acquiring Bitcoin, via their other means. Of course, they got another 100K from China hackers. And so now it gets very interesting if this does play out. If it does become confirmed that the U.S. took 600,000 plus Bitcoin from Venezuela in a, quote, budget neutral way, which I've been telling you guys on the show for a while was very clear what they meant by that, when the biggest kind of way they talked about was asset forfeiture. You're like, okay, all right, makes sense now. But remember what they wanted to do, or remember at least what the big narrative was, that they wanted to acquire 1 million Bitcoin. So if they got 600K plus the unverified 325K Bitcoin that we currently hold, it seems like the U.S. is a little south of 1 million Bitcoin, all in, quote, budget neutral ways. Now, I can hear you guys. I can't actually see the chat right now, but I can already get the sentiment, status doing status things. I thought Bitcoin was unconfiscatable. Well, hey, America is America, currently still the biggest superpower in the world, even though that power is waning and we might be going into a multipolar world right now. But it looks like they're not playing around. Or rather, maybe the more nuanced take here is when they actually want to do something, or rather when they're not handicapped, they will do it and are very capable of doing it. Now, what does this mean if they do acquire, or rather did take 600,000 Bitcoin from Venezuela? I think, very clearly they are running away in the nation state game theory of accumulating as much Bitcoin as possible. Again, these are all unverified reports, but as of now, from, third party kind of investigation of this, it does seem like the Venezuelan government has 600,000 plus Bitcoin. It does seem like America is going into Venezuela and taking all their assets. So it's pretty safe to assume, if that is the case, the U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve is right under 1 million. Now, there is some on-chain analytics, and we haven't seen any action on this actually being verified. So I will keep an eye on this for the next couple of weeks. If something pops up, you guys will learn about it. As we learn about it, we will tell you. But crazy, crazy stuff that happened over the weekend, not only because of the operation itself, but I think if they did acquire 600,000 Bitcoin from Venezuela, it really just starts, like the Fox News report said, just completely changes the geopolitical economic chessboard in one move. Absolutely insane stuff happening. Again, from my perspective, I'm not Venezuelan. I literally went to bed early Friday, like normal world. I wake up Saturday and I go on Twitter and I'm like, what in the world happened last night? Again, maybe it's because I'm an American. I just saw all these edits, The Fortunate Son. I'm like, damn, this is badass. Like, look, sue me. Call me a status all you want. I was like, hell yeah, this is kind of dope. Sorry, I'm a dude. I see the military do something kind of badass. I know you can call me a status all you want. I'm like, damn, this shit's kind of awesome. But obviously, it doesn't really take away the other side of the coin for me, which is the fiat war machine, the financial industrial complex, we all know that this is what they do. This is what they do. This is what happens. So again, allegedly went down there for, drug trafficking. President end up taking their oil reserves, their gold reserves, their silver reserves, which again, the implications of hard money, that's just probably going to hit the markets. Gold and silver are probably going to cool off a little bit. Everyone, I think, is going to eventually find their way to Bitcoin. And, unbeknownst to all of us, at the very same time, Bitcoin finally gets above 90K. So look, I don't know what's going on in terms of Bitcoin right now, but I'm starting to feel vindicated on my calls all of the end of last year. I don't think we're going into a bear market, boys. We couldn't even get the 10 a.m. dump this morning. Now, I don't want to jinx it, which actually I'm going to talk about that later. I find it so funny when Bitcoin pumps that we're so superstitious about it. So I kind of want to rant about that later on the show. But man, crazy stuff right here. So again, unverified reports, the U.S. is most likely now allegedly holding close to 1 million Bitcoin. China is no longer, and literally no other country is coming close to that Bitcoin reserve if this is the case. Donald Trump, for all of his faults, maybe did come through on his promise of U.S. becoming the Bitcoin superpower of the world. We will keep tabs on this story, but from a Bitcoiner's perspective, a lot of Bitcoin just moved hands if this is the case. So, again, unverified kind of rumors, some speculation, but this seems to be what has happened. We'll keep tabs on it. Anyways, for the rest of the show, thank you guys. We're back, dude. First week of the year, first official week of 2026, and we finally get some crazy news. Yo, guys, I think 2026 is going to be insane. This is the first week of 2026. I think we're going to be having a lot of fun here on Simply Bitcoin, boys. Anyways, speaking of the New York mayor, we got a very literally insane clip coming out from, I believe it's Tenant Director of New York, just going full socialist commie on rental properties in New York. And then in the news, bro, the Fed's balance sheet's just starting to expand. So if you're still bearish out there on Bitcoin, I don't know, maybe you need to listen to me a little bit from last year, that towards the end of the year, it's hard for me to stay bearish on Bitcoin right now. Actually, as you guys know, I stayed absolutely bullish on Bitcoin throughout the whole year. I think I'm going to start warming up for my victory lap, boys. I think I'm warming up for my victory lap. I think I'm going to be vindicated on 2026. Obviously, not financial advice. I'm not your quant. I'm just a dude that talks about Bitcoin stuff on YouTube. Anyways, on that note, I will be right back after this commercial break.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bitcoin Well Infinite. If you're a serious Bitcoin buyer, you've probably hit the same wall. Most platforms make you give up custody just to play by the rules. Bitcoin Well Infinite fixes that. They're North America's only publicly traded, non-custodial OTC desk listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, which means transparent operations and zero counterparty risk.
You buy Bitcoin, you take immediate control, period. For trades over $50,000, you get a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, competitive spread starting at 1%, and immediate delivery straight to your own wallet. No custody risk, no withdrawal fees, just institutional grade execution with full asset control. If you want to buy Bitcoin the right way, book a free consultation at bitcoinwell.com/OTC or email infinite@bitcoinwell.com.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them down on paper. Paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere.
No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store.
All right, boys. Mainly boys, but some girls. The current Bitcoin price is, well, we were just at 94K, currently at 93,960, which is a negative 25.5% discount from all-time high. The market cap, we're inching back to 2 trillion. We're at 1.88 trillion, and the current block height, the only time that matters, the only real time, the only universal time is the block height. It's currently at 931. And wow, I'm so blind. And 32 931032. Actually, before I play the clip for you guys, I did miss one clip, which is following along on the Venezuelan kind of story. So apparently, I'm not familiar with the people in Venezuela. I'm not very familiar with their politics. I know the historical context, but apparently the Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, went on the podcast with Alex Gladstein, and she was saying, like, Bitcoin, it's going to be a national reserve asset. It's been a lifeline. It's a vital means of resistance. So look, the Bitcoin narrative is spreading and actually has been spreading in Venezuela for a long time here. So that's just a continuation. I really want to touch on this because there is maybe a funny aftermath to this. This clip here is absolutely insane, just to say the least. I think it is a few years old. It's probably now just coming up because of all the things we saw over the weekend. But the mayor of New York, Mamdani's tenant director, I honestly have no clue what that even means, Sia Weaver, is going out and just literally saying just straight up socialist communist things going on in New York. It's absolutely insane. And the reason I'm bringing this up today is because of what Trump did in Venezuela. I think he did send a message to the mayor of New York, because he is a renowned socialist here. Look, hey, say what you want about being a statist, but I'm more anti-communism than I am anti-statism, even though you could say it's two wings of the same bird. It's all collectivism. I get it. Anyways, let's listen to this clip. It's absolutely nuts. If this doesn't scare you and you are in New York, or rather, if you are in New York and you haven't woken up to what is going on, you probably need some Bitcoin.
I think the reality is that for centuries, we've really treated property as an individualized good and not a collective good. And we are going to transitioning to treating it as a collective good and towards a model of shared equity will require that we think about it differently. And it will mean that families, especially white families, but some POC families who are homeowners as well, are going to have a different relationship to property than the one that we currently have.
Bruh. Are you kidding me? Yeah, so hey, all the boomers that usually have fun trolling, and my parents out there, obviously they're not in New York, but if they were in New York, you're working your whole life to buy a house, to pay for your property, your mortgage, pay your property taxes, to own a property, to own the American dream. They're literally straight up just saying, yeah, like you're gonna have to get used to a collectivist future for your property, which just makes me think, like, what are they doing? This experiment is not going to last long in New York. Now, of course, the interesting part, the part I'm kind of bringing this up, is because we all know who Donald Trump is. He is the president of the United States, a huge real estate mogul. And at the same time of him taking out the socialist dictator autocrat of Venezuela, he did do a very interesting perp walk in the streets of New York. I'm not going to play it. I will just kind of play it in the background here. But oh, wow, I am playing it. Sorry, it's loud. Did a perp walk of Maduro in New York. Now, I think the interest. Oh, wait, wrong one. Sorry. Let me show you guys this. I thought I sent this. Interesting view here of what is going on. Kind of I don't know if you could call it the culture war that is playing out. Hold on. Oh, here we go. The culture war playing out right now. Obviously, Trump is not a fan of what Mondami stands for. He's obviously a real estate mogul, but I think the message is pretty clear. If you're a socialist at this point, you're probably, not going to be in positions of power. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be violent or anything. I didn't say that, but I found that kind of interesting. Like, you see this clip pop up literally the same weekend that Trump takes out Maduro. Perp walks him in New York with the recent socialist mayor. And then the clip is literally about, hey, individualistic property rights are no longer a thing. We're going to transition into a more collective, equitable property rights, which is what, like, all right. So they're literally straight up just calling for communism at this point. Anyways, all that to say, you probably want to own something that they cannot do that to. You cannot socialize the losses in Bitcoin. If you store your Bitcoin correctly, no one can take that Bitcoin from you. Bitcoin is digital property rights in cyberspace, as Saylor has said before in the past. Like, if you believe that real estate is a good investment, which you could still argue it is, I'm not going to argue otherwise, though I personally am not doing it. I personally wouldn't do it until I have a family or I want a house. You should probably be divesting from those property rentals as much as possible. Get yourself some Bitcoin if you're still on zero. We are entering some very interesting times right now. And I think, as we like to say here, or as rather Nico likes to say usually, there is no, wait, what is it? There's no coincidences. There's no accidents, but there's no coincidence. I forget. You guys know the meme. But yeah, I saw this and I'm like, yo, whoa. The timing is interesting. Obviously, again, I did see Grok say this was like, 2 years old, but she is currently now in a position of power. So, hey, the game is being reshuffled everywhere. It looks like 2026 is going to be an extremely spicy year just across the board. Now, if 2025 was a boring year for us Bitcoiners, I'm starting to think 2026 is just going to be a banger. Overall, undisputed banger of a year for 2026, not only from a Bitcoin price perspective, but from just an insane cultural perspective. Look, you guys know me. I'm not the biggest Trump fan here. I have been very critical of Trump. But from what we saw the very first weekend of 2026, it does look like the foundation for them to just start doing things, it might be happening. So buckle up. 2026 is going to probably be a much more volatile year in terms of everything, from a markets perspective, from a cultural perspective. And I just hope that you did the work in 2025. You stacked sats, you took it into cold storage, you tried to make yourself as sovereign as possible. So if anything does go crazy, I'm not really one of these fiat doomers. I don't have like a prep bag, with cans of beans or whatever. But it looks like 2026 is just going to be an insane year overall. And I'm kind of here for it. Last year, the news got a little slow. If this is the start of 2026, I am super excited to come on and do this show with you guys every single day. Hopefully, we have a lot of things to talk about. Anyways, continuing on the Fed talk. Dude, when it rains, it pours. Though this is the opposite. When it's sunny, it's just beautiful and everything just happens. Everything happens at once. What's that one quote? There are decades when nothing happens, and then there are, days when years happen. We're in the days where years happen, boys. All right, we'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money, it's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitKey. If you already self-custody your Bitcoin, you know the deal with hardware wallets by now. Complex setups, clumsy interfaces, and a seed phrase that can be lost, stolen, or forgotten. BitKey fixes that. BitKey is a multi-sig hardware wallet built by the team behind Square and Cash App. It packs a cryptographic recovery system and built-in inheritance feature into an intuitive, easy-to-use wallet with no seed phrase to sweat over. It's simple, secure, self-custody without the stress. Time named BitKey one of the best inventions of 2024. Get 20% off at bitkey.world. That's BITKEY.world with the code SIMPLY.
All right, guys, we are back. All right, look. We all know what happened the end of this last year. Officially, QT is done. Now, does that necessarily mean that QE is coming back, that quantitative easing is coming back on the table? Not necessarily. We are in a not QE environment where they haven't necessarily turned on the money printer, but they are actively talking about the narrative of running things hot, which inevitably leads to you need to own assets. That is the official line, party line here from everyone at the Fed, the Trump administration, all saying the same thing. QT is done. We're not in QE, but it's all quantitative easing. It's all money printing by a different name. And we finally got some confirmation of that's happening, which on the one hand, Nico's trolled me on the show before because I basically, he said that I was saying like, F the middle class, like run it hot, pump my assets. And that's not what I said. All I said in the past was that they are going to devalue your purchasing power and you need to hold assets. That's the playbook. That's what they're saying. That's what you need to do if you want to, get ahead or stay ahead, or at the very least, stay to where you've been. Now, again, confirmation of this happening. I saw this tweet. It was Matthew Hyland. I really don't know who this is, but he's got a lot of followers and he seems to be a Bitcoin guy. And he goes, the expansion of the Fed balance sheet has begun. It has officially begun. The money faucet is opening up. And so, I went in and I fact checked it. Here we are at fred.stlouisfed.org, which, if you don't know, is basically all of the official charts coming out of the Federal Reserve. And here's the exact chart. This is the 5-year chart. Now, going into the 1-year chart, you can see that as of the mid part of December, literally a month ago, it has officially bottomed out, and it's added what? Let's see this, 100 billion, about 100 billion. So not the biggest expansion, but it has officially expanded. Now, this is probably where it gets most interesting, is when you go on the 10-year chart. Now, looking back at what happened in 2020, obviously it is not this dramatic, but we aren't necessarily in a 2020 type economic scenario today. But as you can see, it looks tiny. It looks tiny here on the total assets, but it is starting to expand after roughly 3 years of them minimizing the balance. So the fact that Bitcoin was able to go to 126 in the face of all of this, I think it's almost like a miracle in its own right. Now, obviously, Bitcoin doesn't just move because the Fed contracts or expands. It's not necessarily how it works. But as central banks start to expand and create more assets, which in your head should just create money out of thin air, because they literally don't do anything. They literally just create money out of debt. That's all they do. That's their whole sole existence, besides what their official narratives are. I think it's pretty safe to say that they're going to run the economy so hot in 2026. You need to have some assets. Now, obviously, I'm biased. I think Bitcoin is the most liquid. It responds the quickest. It responds the strongest to money printing, to the global liquidity supply expanding. But the confirmation is there, guys. You can see it on the chart. They're expanding. Now, there is kind of some debate on whether the Fed expanding their assets, their balance sheet, necessarily means money supply, or rather that money will eventually end up into the economy, or rather into Bitcoin, better said. Now, as of now, it's not necessarily going into the broader economy. Like, we're not getting helicopter dollars here. We're not getting airdrops yet, but you can start to see that the economy, it's just they're going to put it in overdrive, guys. The money printer is going to get put into overdrive. I think it's a consequence of a lot of things. One, as we saw towards the tail end of 2025, there is a lot of liquidity concerns, not only in the US, but globally. A lot of central banks essentially realize there's no stopping this train. They have to continue to print the money. They've been trying to kind of contract all of the numbers. They've been trying to, kill inflation. They've been trying to not expand the money supply too much. They're trying to lower interest rates. And essentially all of their tools so far haven't really done what they thought it would do. So they really only have one last move left, which is print more money. They have to turn on the money supply. And as you can see, QT officially done. Now, we haven't seen QE, but not QE is still QE by any other name. The Fed's balance sheet is expanding. You need to position yourself right now. This is like musical chairs, and the music is starting to slow down. Now, I'm not a doomer. I don't think the fiat system will necessarily collapse overnight or something like that. I don't think that the fiat system necessarily has to collapse for Bitcoin to do what it's going to do. But as you start to see that the liquidity starts to expand, the liquidity supply starts to expand, people want to find a new way to store value. And Bitcoin, as of 2025, it has entered the mainstream consciousness. I don't know if you guys saw this morning, but Bank of America officially recommending 4% of people's portfolio into Bitcoin. So I think the stampede, the tsunami is on the way. It's like when the water pulls back on the tsunami and you're like, wait, what is happening? And then the water starts rushing forward. We'll use that analogy as like the liquidity starts to enter Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's price action, and again, it's only 5 days for the start of 2026. So don't hold too much weight to that movement. But if what we're seeing right now is kind of the general trend for 2026, yes, there will be pullbacks. Yes, it's not just going to just continue to print green days every single day. But if what we're seeing right now, and this is kind of the local bottom for this last move, 2026, the price of Bitcoin is going to go up because people need to find hard assets. 2025 taught us one lesson. It's that investors wanted hard assets. Obviously, they go to what they're most comfortable with, which is gold. And then if you're a gold bug, you probably have some silver. Then silver started running. And then lo and behold, by the end of the year, they found more gold supply and more silver supply. So, those trades, while they're doing good in fiat terms, slowly but surely, they're probably not going to do too hot. So I think a lot more people in 2026 are going to find and start to hold Bitcoin. That's kind of my take. My more bullish take on what's going on with Bitcoin is, guys, I was right. We went sideways and now we start pumping. Again, I don't want to celebrate too early, but that leads me perfectly into what I wanted to talk about in today's culture. So I'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy, HIVE has quadrupled its global Bitcoin mining footprint and channels that same scale into high performance compute, where their AI cloud is now ranked #1 in the world for network performance. At HIVE, you've got dual engines, Bitcoin and AI humming, roaring, accelerating in unison. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable digital infrastructure. You can catch the latest buzz at Hive Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, bitcoinben.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe, featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Ben's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank. And you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys. Tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth. And join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinben.io. Join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so as you guys are aware, Bitcoin price is getting bubbly. We're at 94K. Well, let me double check here. Where are we currently? Oh no, I'm chart boying a little bit. I'm not going to chart boy. I'm not chart boying. Okay. We're going to look at it for a second. Where we at? We are currently at 93.9. Okay. So basically 94K. As you see, Bitcoin went back to 94K. You guys could check my magic lines here. That's kind of the area that we need to retake before we start to feel like, okay, maybe we're going to go back to 101K climb, which is essentially the 50-week moving average. So you can see here, these are kind of the 2 areas that I'm watching, this like 94K range. And if we can secure that, then we go to the 101K range. So I'm not chart boying. I did do a little chart boying. You guys love the chart boying. I'll put on the 1 minute chart for a little bit just because you guys love that. Actually, shouts out to, I'm blanking on who it was. Sorry, bro, but someone hit me up on Orange Pill app Sunday morning. He's like, yo, the 1 minute chart is going wild. And so, of course, I had to respond. I had to go look at the 1 minute chart. I'm very proud that I kind of memed the 1 minute chart. I didn't know. You guys don't know about the 1 minute chart. The 1 minute chart is just the funnest thing to look at. Don't trade the 1 minute chart. This is for entertainment purposes only. Just watch the 1 minute chart and you'll start to feel your emotions kind of go with it. It's just fun. It's just good fun. All right, guys. Anyways, the reason I'm kind of talking about where we currently are is because this morning I kind of had like an interesting maybe introspective thought. It's really not that deep, but this morning, one of my friends tweeted like we're at 93K or something. And what's his Twitter? Like Katoshi or whatever, you know, shouts out to you. He used to hang out with us in chat and then he rage quit on us. We still troll each other on Twitter. He's basically like, shut your dirty mouth. It made me think. I was just like, it made me just reflect. I started to think of the irony of it, where, you know, on the one hand, us Bitcoiners are super, you know, loud about like, trust the math, man, believe in math, bro, like 21 million hard cap the code, like everything divided by 21 million. It's math, dude. It's simply math, dude. Like very logical, right? We're very logical in our kind of shills and what we believe in Bitcoin to be and why we believe in Bitcoin. And then at the same time, when we see Bitcoin start to pump, we're very superstitious. And I just sat there. I was drinking my morning coffee, getting ready to go to the gym. And for the first time, the dichotomy, the irony of it kind of just was, I just couldn't ignore it. I was sitting there. I'm like, you know, it's very funny to me. We're so mathematical. And yet once the Bitcoin price starts pumping, it's all about superstitions. It's all about vibes. When you can see, and really, if you understand what's going on in kind of in the macro landscape, you can see all the different factors that do push up Bitcoin, but we're still just like, dude, don't jinx it, bro. Don't say it. Don't even look at it. Don't talk about it, guys. If you talk about it, you're going to dump it. Now, I've been guilty of it. I'm guilty of both sides of this. But on the one hand, I couldn't ignore just how funny that was to me. On the other hand, obviously, we do kind of understand the mechanics here. Like I think there is very real traders out there that are algorithmically kind of trading trends. As a Bitcoin heuristic goes, is like the more people talk about Bitcoin, that's when the traders want to short Bitcoin and wreck the people. So like that is a factor here. I get that. Maybe this is just a shorthand way of people talking about that mechanism or that kind of trading strategy to play out. But I don't know, for this reason, this morning, I'm like, wow, dude, we're so logical. And yet we're so superstitious. Maybe this is just a culmination of humanness, of being human, of human psychology, which Bitcoin is we can be very logical in a lot of different, you know, disciplines. You can be logical in certain aspects of your lives. And then there's other times when you're just super superstitious and you just like your thought process goes completely out the window. And you guys troll me all the time. Like, I am a Bitcoiner, maybe not that logical. Again, you know, 42 IQ Bitcoiner here, left side of the right side of the bell curve here. But I am religious, and you guys troll me all the time. Like I grew up Catholic. You guys, I hear you guys in the chat all the time. It's like, dude, for you being, you know, such a smart Bitcoiner, I can't believe you believe in the, you know, the bearded guy in the sky. And it's like, well, it's faith. I can't explain it. I believe in God. You know, I understand your argument, but there's just leaps of faith that I do take in certain aspects of my life. And, you know, I think everyone has these. But this morning I was just sitting there. I'm like, man, it's so funny. We're so superstitious when it comes to the price. And I at this point, I think as I was claiming last week, I was like the last bullish Bitcoiner on YouTube. Even my most bullish friends were starting to get bearish. And I'm like, dude, I just think everything's changed. Like, I just think fundamentally the institutions have changed Bitcoin. And I'm not completely vindicated here. It's not completely confirmed. You know, we could go up to like $100,000 Bitcoin and then we dump back down. We could BART back down. You know, I'm still completely open to that being the possibility. But I don't think that's playing out, guys. With the geopolitical nation state game theory that's playing out. Again, if the Venezuela news is real and it comes out that it is confirmed, then the rocket boosters, the fireworks just got put under every world leader's ass now. And they have to start stacking Bitcoin. They have to start, at the very least, allowing Bitcoin to be used in a traditional financial sense. And if that game theory kicks in, bro, we're not bullish enough. We are totally not bullish enough on where we are going this year. Now, obviously, this is uncharted water. I'm kind of convinced the 4-year cycle is completely done. Maybe it's on like an 8 count right now. Maybe it's a 7 count. Maybe it's a 9 count. I don't know. But things have changed. Fundamentally changed. Yes, we got an all-time high 18 months after the halving, but we got an all-time high before the halving. We should be dropping like a hot potato. And I think over the weekend, or rather where this price has been holding up, I did look back on kind of previous price actions. And I think it kind of reminded me at the end of the 2021 bear market where we kind of went sideways. And then roughly around this time, we completely nuked. Now, again, being a little superstitious here, I don't want to jinx it. But guys, buckle up. I think 2026 is going to be a great year. I'll say it now. I will, eat crow. I'll eat my foot at the end of the year if I'm wrong. But I'm starting to feel very bullish. I'm starting to get very excited about what 2026 is going to offer us. I think it's going to be a great year. It's going to be a crazy year, but it's going to be a great year. So with that, first day of the first week of Simply Bitcoin 2026 officially done. Let's hope we get some crazy news stories this year, guys. Let's hope we just get unlimited news and we can come in and day out and just lose our gourd and really do the are we tired of winning? I really hope I'm tired of winning by the end of the year. I really hope I'm tired of covering extremely bullish stuff because my dopamine is so fried because the price is ripping. We got all this news happening. Our jobs are good. We feel good. We're fit. We're wealthy. We got some girlfriends, multiple girlfriends. And life's good, man. I really do believe there is a fork in the road right now. You're either on the hard money Bitcoin side or you're on the very depressed life is hard side. You got to pick. Can't have both feet in both avenues. Though, I would argue, keep your fiat job. Funnel the funds into Bitcoin. That's probably the best bet for most people. Don't be dumb like me. Don't do the naive jump. And this isn't me gatekeeping. This is just like, if I was smarter, I probably wouldn't have done this. But hey, it's working out. We love you guys. I appreciate you guys. 2026 is going to be lit, man. All right. It's your boy Opti. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day. Peace out. Until next time. This has been Simply Bitcoin Live.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.